You are listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network.
Ya lo hacen. Pierna derecha, directo al arco. ¡Golazo! 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 ¡Golazo!
This is Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio, your new live show about the beautiful game in all its glory, with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee. MLS, EPL, La Liga, Champions League, all is fair game. Powered by the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us at sportspodcastingnetwork.com.
Happy Wednesday, everyone, and happy Canada undefeated on top of the group. How does that even happen? If you hear a little bit of an error in the background there, that's because we have Gavin Day on the line live from Houston. He was at the game last night. He was doing some of that early reporting on the mess in the second game. We'll get to that in a minute. But Gavin, how you doing?
Yeah, no complaints so far. Gotta be up early because now we're moving on to Frisco. It's weird to have back-to-back games in the same state in this tournament, but can't complain so far.
Fair enough. And, of course, we'll say hello to Kevin real quickly. Kevin, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. Not used to this. It kind of feels weird that, I don't know, like drawing Costa Rica, I still feels so surreal.
Well, we drew Costa Rica in the last Gold Cup. I will remind people, it just felt like a loss at the time. And Gavin, let's start with this. One of the things that's really grabbed me in this tournament so far when we're talking about Canada is that they're playing brave. And I cannot remember the last time Canada played brave. They're on their front foot. They're trying to attack. They're trying to get forward. Is this the most you've ever seen a Canadian team play? We're talking attack.
Well, I still think of the 3-0 win against El Salvador. That hasn't been that long. The one in Vancouver, where unfortunately the World Cup qualifying campaign came to an end. But I get what you mean, and I mean this young group that's taken over and really sort of started to build a bit of a core. And it might just be that, yeah, they don't have the tragedies that the older players have experienced yet, and they've just come in and it looks like they've had just sort of this liberty, and then they're maybe because there is no expectation on them, they're just sort of seeing what happens, and so far it's been pretty fun so far.
No, precisely, and the result against Costa Rica. In the past, we've got results against some of these bigger countries, and Costa Rica right now is a bigger country, obviously in CONCACAF. But it's kind of been Korean and sort of getting a lot here and there. But I thought they were full measure last night. What do you think has been for the success so far, though?
It's hard to sort of pinpoint one thing. There have been a number of guys who have just stepped up, and Milan Borjan coming in and doing what he does and making some quality saves yesterday. He did keep them in it, as he's done a number of times before. But then as you look at, there's that Alfonso Davies kid who has proven to be clinical. You look at the amount of chances Canada has had, 5 shots, not many on target, but he took his one. And when was the last time Canada had someone who's taken the few chances given to them? And then even, you look at our field right now. He's stepped up, and he's owning that midfield spot for Canada, and he's got the liberty to do, to sort of do what he does, and then he's lifting the other guys around him.
In a hot and humid environment, which was humid and close to thunders at the end of the game, a lot of Costa Rica, well, a lot. The few fans that were there, it was more Costa Rica focused. How did the players react in this environment that was kind of hostile to them?
They just sort of dealt with it. I think 2 years ago, those who were there against Jamaica said that was the hottest full-stop game they've ever played. And, here it started off hot at the start of the day, and then you see the big clouds coming in, and there was a good thunderstorm for a little bit, a couple hours before the game, and then the temperature wasn't so bad, but it was incredibly muggy. So they went out and did their business, but there were one or two of them afterwards who sort of said that was a bit much. I mean, but they always sort of seem to lament getting stuck in these games in Texas where they have to handle this adversity. And it was more humid than hot, but they just sort of handled it, and it didn't seem to faze them in any way, which was nice to see.
You mentioned Alphonso Davies, and let's not dwell on his success, but still, it's impressive. 3 goals in a game and a half, basically, and he's already halfway to the goal-leading record for Canada in the Gold Cup. Are you impressed? I know we talked 2 weeks ago about this, Gavin, but it seems like every time we think we figured him out, he just continues to impress.
Yeah, I mean, what more can you say? We sort of, when the Canada called this team dynamic initially coming in, and well, if there's anyone who sort of lived up to that, it's Davies, and not only the finishing, but the pace and the vision that he has and the way he timed his run yesterday. And it was a tough finish to sort of lift up the left leg and redirect that ball into the goal. So, whatever you've asked of him, he's asked so far and then some. And then you think that he's 16, and where do you think the roof is on this kid? And I don't think we're even close to there yet.
Yeah, well, exactly. And real quickly, before I get into the question, he did go off with a bit of a knock there in the end. Any update you can provide there?
Zambrano asked afterwards, said he's going to be fine. The physio said there's nothing sort of structurally that looks to be bad. So, but he also, maybe covering his bases, said he should be good to start, but they haven't decided how they're going to use him yet. So whatever role he's going to play, he thinks he'll be ready, but I was covering his bases a little bit just in case we don't see him in the starting lineup in a couple of days.
All right, to continue on the Davies stuff for one last question there. How much hype is he getting amongst non-Canadians down there? Are you hearing a lot of buzz about his play so far?
There's a little bit, but I think if things continue the way they are, there's going to be more. I mean, Costa Rica media was sort of focusing on Costa Rica. It was a bit odd where Oscar Ramirez, the Costa Rican coach, comes into his press conference, and I'm the one who asked the first question, which I didn't expect, but they hand me the microphone, and I asked in English, what do you think of Davies, the 16-year-old? And he gave an answer that they're watching him. He's a good young player. But then afterwards, there were 3 guys who sought out Davies at the end. So it's quiet so far. Well, quiet, all things considered, but if that continues the way he's going, CONCACAF is in for a bit of a revelation.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, let's talk about the Maluda situation a little bit here. First, from the Canadian perspective, did you get any sense about what their feeling on this is? Because they could kind of be screwed by this if they end up doing the same stunt against Costa Rica and handing them 3 goals. Is there any feeling kind of the Canadian camp or any opinion about the situation?
Yeah, they were out of there so quickly that I'm guessing they didn't even know. So nobody really offered up anything, but I think they've gone in with an attitude of we'll just play our game and then see what happens, and they fully expect to get a result. I mean, that's the CONCACAF disciplinary board or whatever they call themselves is still looking at this situation, and it's another one of these moments where who knows what's going to happen with that. And, but to Canada's credit, they only talked about their own game and going in to get a result against Honduras on Friday night.
The way Honduras has been playing, I wouldn't be surprised if it's finally the time to maybe avenge a certain loss in a big way. The way Canada's been playing compared to Honduras, Honduras has been, one of the worst teams in that group. Like, Guyana sometimes looked better against them yesterday, even though it's going to be different with the result when you need a dribble player. What do you think, Gavin? Is it the time where Canada can beat Honduras in a Gold Cup?
If ever they're due for something, now could be that time. But I mean, there's that one game that you mentioned, but there's also the qualifier where they only lost 2-1. So Honduras seems to have a knack of knocking Canada out of big competitions lately. And if ever you're looking for optimism in this Canadian youth revival, then this is a good time for them to to show that they're turning the page and this new group is ready to forget about the past.
Now, Gavin, we're going into the last game, Honduras. Do you think Canada, after this game, moves on to the knockout stage? And in the knockout stage, with the possibility of having Cal Aaron joining the team, is there a potential where Canada can maybe become a semifinalist once again, first time since 2007?
Sure, if you could repeat that, I actually missed it.
Has a chance to maybe repeating being a semifinalist for the first time since 2007 if they reach the knockout stage.
Yeah, I mean, I think anything's possible in this tournament. I think it was, Jamaica and Panama have both shown in previous tournaments that, anything sort of can happen. And so once you get to the knockout round, and Canada isn't there yet, but we know not to fully count that out yet, because I remember being at that 2011 tournament where they still finished with 4 points and didn't get through. But, once they're through, all it takes is one game in the knockout round and anything can happen where, hey, you're just about into a semifinal. So, let's not get too ahead of ourselves. It's only been 2 games, but, this team is up for a fight. And it has proven tough act to beat, but they're now guys who are stepping up and scoring, and I wouldn't say no to anything at this stage of the game.
Do you get the sense, Gavin, that this group would love a shot at one of the 2 big boys?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they're having fun, and you see it in training where they're kidding around. I mean, Canada's teams always seems to group, but they really want to test themselves, and they've gotten one so far in Costa Rica. And, there's a Mexican in the U.S. side right now that maybe aren't at full strength. Obviously, that could change with the knockout round coming, but, they always want to test themselves against these great teams. And Canada honestly doesn't get competition games against these good teams that often. So, they're up for it. They're certainly up for a fight these days.
All right. I want to party like it's 1984. I want the U.S. so bad in a game in this tournament. I can't even describe it. Gavin, all right. Well, thank you for your time. We'll let you get. I know it's a travel day for you, so enjoy Frisco. I guess if you can enjoy Frisco, I don't know. Try and get into Dallas.
I was like, what's there to do in Frisco anyways?
All right.
I have honestly no idea.
All right.
Let us know.
I'm sure there's good ribs down there somewhere or something. At any rate.
There's a minor league baseball team too that I'm going to check out. They're try to anyway. So that's something.
Okay, there you go. Enjoy Texas. It's always bigger, and we'll let you go for now, and maybe we'll touch base later. Cheers.
Sounds good. Thanks.
You are listening to Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio. Visit sportspodcastingnetwork.com for more.
Gavin, of course, is covering the tournament for Sportsnet. I forgot to give that little plug in there, so you can read his work at Sportsnet this week. One day, Kevin, we're gonna get Gavin on the phone when he doesn't sound like he's in a submarine, but
you know what? No, it goes with it. I'll take it. Globetrotter extraordinaire comes with, well, it just fits the part. Gives some mood. Gives some audio ambiance.
Yes, exactly. I was trying to remember where we were talking to him. It's like Morocco or something one time where it was like
Morocco. He was like covering a volleyball championship somewhere in Europe, I believe. It was like it's amazing. It's like he's living a life. And thanks, Gavin, for your time.
Yeah, we talked to him in Tokyo once too. Yes, I remember that. Yeah, that was on 5 Rings, I think. Anyhow, look, I guess we'll start with Canada, and then we'll get into the stuff ourselves and get our opinion there. I have some pretty strong opinions I was voicing on Twitter last night.
Pretty PG-13, if not rated R. But it was interesting. Duane, I want to start where we've talked about the game with Gavin, but we haven't mentioned the backbone of Canada for the first 2 games, Scott Arfield. How amazing has he been? Literally, like the backbone, like the midfield, box to box, there when it counts, defending goals for his life and creating them for Davies in the first one. Wow, what a game. What a performance for Scott Arfield in the next first two games.
Well, yeah. Well, look, I mean, he plays the Premier League, so
Yeah,
it shouldn't
no.
be that.
Well, he used to play in the Premier League. We'll see about
Yeah,
next
I
year.
mean, he played in the Premier League last year. Yes. Look, Arfield's a good player. There was an article in the Atlantic here, or here in not the Atlantic, the Athletic here in Toronto yesterday, where they said that Alphonso Davies was the best player to play for Canada in decades, and few of us took issue with that statement, and it's because of guys like Arfield that clinically and criminally get overlooked because Canadians just don't have a great understanding of what our player pool is. And the reality is Alphonso Davies is dynamic and exciting and maybe the best prospect that's been in this country for a long time. But there's a lot of other talent out there. And Arfield's a great example. Now, Arfield's a bit of a weird one because of his sort of dual nationalism of it. He wasn't produced in this country, but he is a Canadian national now. So he certainly has to be considered in that conversation. And you're right. The headlines are going to go to the kid, and rightly so. He's 16 and he's the Golden Boot leader in a continental championship. This is a story when we're talking about Alphonso Davies that is not just in Canada. This is a story that is soon going to be around the world if he continues on this scoring pace in this tournament. But Arfield, yeah, key. And this whole team is playing very well across the board. I thought Mark-Anthony Kaye, our friend Mark-Anthony Kaye, played brilliantly in his first ever appearance in a major competition yesterday and was a key part. Junior Hollett is making great runs. Excuse me. So there's a lot to like about this team.
Yeah, no, Duane. And on top of it, Borjan in net yesterday. How solid was he? Like, save, one-handed parade. It was a magnificent performance by Borjan. And even at some point, he's not used to having a decent defense in front of him when he's playing for Canada. So he has like the instinct to always go after the ball if it's like 15 feet away from net, and usually cost a goal per 2-3 games. There was like the instinct of that, but refocused, takes back his position. It was like a great performance by Borjan yesterday.
Yeah, well, yeah, we were actually having a conversation with Borjan at Scallywags last night where we said precisely what you just said, that he's a brilliant shot stopper, and he's clearly, with all due respects to Kurpo, he's clearly the number one right now in terms of his ability and where he's played. But even if you look at his club career, and we don't get to see a lot of it here in Canada, but we have seen him play in a few big games against Arsenal and against Liverpool, most notably. He tends to have a lot of great moments and a brain fart. And we almost saw that brain fart near the end where he ran out and made that weird kind of,
but he came back, right? Just in time.
Yeah, he got it done in just in time. So that's the weakness to his game, clearly. But he's a character too. If you've ever watched him, like around it, he's always like
Aren't
interacting.
Every goalkeeper good? Like good goalkeeper characters to begin with, right? Doesn't it does it go with it's par for the course? It goes with the job. You kind of have to be like not wanting to be with the other guys, wanting to be by your own between the posts.
Yeah, it's a different. Well, I play it at a bad level, and you're playing a different game than everyone else, exactly, and you're alone with your thoughts a lot, which makes you a little weird. So interpret that however you want.
Weird is beautiful, by the way.
There you go, exactly. No, but I think he's well liked in the team, and he was a nice find by the Federation for sure. He's another one of those guys that has the born in and left early and has come back and totally embraced his Canadian adventure. I could totally see him coming back here if they could get the money right. He makes pretty good money where he is right now, I think, though. Look, yeah, as I said, all around great performance, dynamic performance. And what I liked most about it, and that was my first question to Gavin, is how brave they played. Costa Rica still produced a lot of great chances, particularly at the end of that first half and the first 5 minutes of the second half, where it was like, looked like the old Canada for there for a bit. But what I liked about that is they didn't get their head down.
And the PTSD effect come really close. Like, we can't take this. We can. Oh, all right, we made it through. Settle down. Calm down. We're good.
Well, yeah, that's just it. I mean, in the past, maybe, like you said, the battle-scarred guys, maybe they go, oh, okay, well, this is where it turns and the heat and everything else, and they just put their head down and they get trampled over. But they allowed that goal, which bit of a breakdown, I think, in the marking on that set piece. Then they sort of got a little bit overwhelmed for the next 5 minutes. They survived it. The second half started. Costa Rica was on the front foot, but they survived that, and they regrouped, and there was a stretch. I think on the overall play, Costa Rica probably had a little bit more of the better opportunities, but it wasn't a complete it was a good result by both teams, really. Like the 1-1 was fair at the end, and that's not something we've always could have said in the past. And this has been a remarkable revelation so far. Now, a little bit.
Yeah, but just before we pump the brakes, I have something that I want to talk about before too. If you watch the broadcast on TSN, you're paying attention before the game. Zambrano was like interviewed pregame, and he was mentioning the game against Costa Rica and the upcoming game against Honduras as well, saying, "Look, we want to be competitive. We have to show up for those games." I'm actually telling players like Mark Anthony Gay, you show me something in training, show me something in practice. Now show this to me in this game. This is your chance. It's now and basically now or never. And a coach having this, not very strict, but having like confidence in his players enough to tell the media, we're going to go after those two games. And I haven't seen this in a long time. Actually, I have never seen this for Canada since I've been following the national team, especially closely, is putting this team on his back and saying, you know what, I believe in you guys and we'll do something. It's kind of beautiful to see there. I have like tears in my eyes talking about it.
Well, yeah, look, I mean, we saw this, I think, from a Canadian perspective overall with the women in 2012, where a lot of us doubted them heading into that tournament. And they believed in themselves, though, and they, although it was precarious at times, as we've talked about many times, they got the job done and got a bronze medal, and then they followed that up with a remarkable performance in 2016. Sort of where this infusion of sort of confidence within Canadian soccer started. We haven't seen it on the men's side until now. Now, when I was pumping the brakes, I wasn't going to pump them that hard. I don't want you to fly through the windshield, but I do want us to just, be perspective or have some perspective on this. There will be some bumps down the road. I don't think Canada's going to win this tournament, which means we're going to lose at some point, and that's going to be sad. But what's lovely and what's great is for the first time in a decade, I feel like we're in it, like I feel like we're part of the conversation. And I can't remember the last time that really happened. Maybe, I guess, heading into the 8-1 game could be if you want to be generous.
Thanks. Bring on the States, Duane. Hashtag bring on the States. I want to see it. I want to see the fact that the United States with this club, you have a few pieces missing. And for Canada, you have new pieces like Davies and Larin, probably in the knockout stage for Larin, kind of bridges that gap. I think we can take them. Sorry, guys. Sorry, listeners in the States, but kind of want to see it happen.
Yeah, I misspoke with Gavin. I said 84. It was a little bit later than that. The last
it was 85,
the US,
right? No,
it was 88.
Oh, 88, yeah.
It's been since the 1980s since Canada beat the United States and the men's side, and it's not been. I think it was 2001 was the last time the women won. So it's been a very long time since either the men or the women have defeated the United States in even a friendly, let alone an official competition. Now, of course, that's why Atiba was onside is so much of a, trope meme up here is because, God damn it, we almost had it there. Again, it would have just drew it. But nonetheless, look. Yes, that's exactly who I want. We played Mexico twice in the last little while, and I do believe this Mexican team, although not as good as their full team, clearly is still damn good and the favorite to win the tournament. I'd rather avoid their side of the draw simply because I want that opportunity to play the United States. We are getting ahead of ourselves, though. They technically could still get screwed by the way things face out and not make the knockout, but I think it's probably pretty likely with the goals that they've scored so far. The concept that there's going to be that they're going to be overtaken for one of those two best third place finishes with 5 goals scored already, and the +2 is going to be they'd have to have their ass handed to them by Honduras, and hope I just can't see this team doing something like that.
First of all, I couldn't handle that, but I don't think we're going to need to worry about it because I think Honduras looked terrible in their first 2 games, and Canada has surprised pretty much every observer that actually paid attention in Group A.
Yeah, no, look, it's still going to be a battle. Honduras has produced something. They're just not finishing. But, the draw would secure them second place. Likely it would be second with Costa Rica probably getting the 3-0 handed to them. Although we'll move to that in a second and the show. It frustrates me, that situation. But nonetheless, people have pointed out to me that they might be better off in second place anyway, and that's based on who they would draw. They would get second place Group A, which could conceivably be the U.S. If Panama gets better results in the next 2 games, and we'll start to see that tonight. But I would rather I'd still rather they finish first just for the confidence boost of winning a group, right? And it's been since 07 since they did that. That said, on the other side of the draw, the quarterfinal matchup would probably be something like either Jamaica or Nicaragua. So you'd have to think that they would have a better chance in that matchup. However, that would then, set them up for a Mexico game in the semis, whereas I'd rather be set up for the U.S. in the semis, and that's kind of
face
where
Mexico, the only place you want to face them for the trophy.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Yeah. If you're in the final, I don't care who they're playing. They could be playing.
Because you grow by an inch for a final. You're a little stronger in the final. You have a little more left in the tank for the final.
1970 Brazil in the final, for all I care. I think that they'd have a good chance against the 1970 Brazil team. There's probably a few of those players dead now. So, that'd be
of course.
easier.
11 versus 7 would be a lot easier.
Yeah. And, a bunch of 70-year-old men. It'd be great. Anyway, let's talk about the mess. And
speaking of 70-year-old man, 40-year-old man, Florent Malouda, and the French Guiana situation.
Look,
I can tell it's hard.
This is okay. I will be somewhat fair off the start in the sense. Well, I'm going to be fair, but I'm going to be somewhat delicate off the start. And I'll say this is I empathize with their position that he should be eligible. Because he was eligible in the qualifying for the tournament because they play under different rules there. So, and in the past in Gold Cups, they haven't played by the FIFA rules, but I suspect that they're making this switch because they want, to be seen as more, they want to be seen like they're playing by the same rules as everyone else. And in the past, they kind of let these players in because, CONCACAF was CONCACAFing, right? Like there might have been some deals going on. Now they've changed, though, and they're trying to reform it. Everyone knew going into this tournament that they were playing by the FIFA eligibility rules. So that includes the French Guiana situation. We assume that, they can read rule books. Like, what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to be sarcastic here, but the idea that they were ignorant to this and showed up with him thinking that he would be eligible when he wasn't, that's ridiculous. They showed up with him thinking that they could just go sort of like play chicken and win, because in the past they would have. They probably showed up with the idea that they could, maybe just talk and rub the right shoulders and get him in, and they didn't. But once it became clear that he was not going to be ruled eligible, the fact that you willingly go out and just completely make a farce of the tournament by playing him anyway, that to me is not defendable.
Hey.
And I don't care if it's a small country; it's not defendable.
Let me read this statement. This was taken by Jonathan Tannenwald post-game after the Canada game, in the press conference with the Guyana representative. All right. And Jonathan did a translation of this and put it on social media yesterday. And let me read from Jonathan's Facebook and from Jonathan's Twitter. And you can find it on my Twitter feed as well. We tweeted last night. The context of our team is very complicated. I want to remind you of something. French Guiana isn't a country. French Guiana is an overseas territory of France. And we are clearly constrained by rules that are FIFA's rule. Because when you are in a legal battle to try to get Florent Malouda to play for us from the start, and when you are dealing with rules that can't compare to those for a FIFA nation, how could you prepare adequately to play in the tournament? It's impossible. This is why I am proud of my players tonight, because we asked them to be back home in French. We say with the horses in a competition of Ferraris. With our small means, we still are able to play with bigger nations that have much more in the way of legal and financial resources. For the second game, we're going to have a surprise for you. And we will see what kind of legal work I can show you. We have shown that we largely have the potential to play with these bigger soccer nations. I remind you that this is our first ever participation in a Gold Cup, but we aren't here by chance. When you beat Haiti 5-2 on the road in Caribbean Cup, it shows you can play at this level.
Well, and they can, obviously. And like I say, I empathize with the idea that they should have just let them play. I mean, if you're going to allow these non-FIFA teams in, then, maybe it's okay to let the player, come in. We understand that, like, even if they, considering that if the Confederation Cup continues, they can't qualify it even if they win, right? So they're kind of there as a guest team in many ways, if you think of it that way. And if that's the case, then what the hell, let them play. But again, if the rules are in place and they're willingly forfeiting and handing things and potentially screwing up what the sporting decision should be. The sporting results might be turned on their head. Well, they will be turned on their head based on the fact that they're handing two teams 3-0 victories. That's what the forfeit rule is.
Well, yeah, because it would effectively change Honduras' position in the standings of Group A from third with 1 point for the draw against French Guiana yesterday, because it was a 0-0 draw, but it's going to be 3-0 victory for Honduras if this rule, and because it's still under review officially, but we'll know probably the decision probably today or tomorrow that it's going to be like probably a 3-0 forfeiture, and Honduras will have a +3 in their differential, and that could be very costly for Canada for next game, because if it's just, for example, lo and behold, Honduras wins, then they're tied, and then there's a differential, and so at the end of the day, Honduras could have come out of nowhere and still find a way to screw Canada.
Well, yeah, let's throw Honduras out the window for a second and just look at another scenario that's very realistic that could happen based on the play so far. Let's say Canada gets a 1-0 win over Honduras. That would put them on 7 points. That would put them on +3. That would put them with 6 goals scored, legitimately, right? Let's say Costa Rica, they go out and they win 2-0 against French Guiana. They're on 7 points, tied with Canada. They're on a plus. Right now, they're plus. I'm trying to think right now. So there
would be example equal or not, but because of a +3 for the forfeiture, if they play Maluda, then it could change the differential and make Costa Rica win the group instead of Canada.
Exactly. What they started, it would have made Canada and Costa Rica tied on differential. That was those scenarios, and then Canada would have ended up winning the tiebreaker under normal circumstances based on their goal scored. But because Costa Rica would get an additional goal to them, that would then tip the balance in Costa Rica's favor. So Canada would have won the group legitimately and on the field in a sporting way, but would be handed second place because of a boardroom decision in that scenario, the 1-0, 2-0 scenario. So they don't really control their own destiny when it comes to winning the group, because it's relying upon the fact of whether there's going to be a 3-0 game here. Now, Costa Rica could go out and score 5 goals against French Guiana and take that in that.
And then only 3 counts. But the other option that I see could happen, and this could be extreme, but because of the defiance shown by French Guiana, I wouldn't be surprised if FIFA, by way of CONCACAF, hands out a pretty heavy, not necessarily fine, but a pretty heavy slap on the wrist, would be the entire forfeiture of the entire tournament, and give forfeiture 3-0 to all the teams they played, which would include Canada, which in fact would give Canada a better differential. I think that's a potential potential consequence that French Guiana could face.
But in that scenario, then Canada would lose the goal scored, which then if it went to a second tiebreaker would then still hurt them. So it's not ever going to be completely fair. The only scenario I can see that might work for a fairness, I guess, is if basically you take the French Guiana results just out and you just use the games amongst the other 3 teams to, you leave the French Guiana results in for ranking for best third places, but then you take them out for the tiebreaker within the group, so that you're only using the games between the 3 teams. So right now you'd be looking at Costa Rica would have 3 points, Canada would have 1 point, Costa Rica would have 0 points with the 1 game left to play. That would still put Canada at a disadvantage heading into that final game, but at least it would be harder to argue that they were kind of getting messed up or screwed up by the scenarios that were put in play. That's what I actually favor, that one, if it comes down to it. This is CONCACAF, though. They could just decide to leave the French Guiana results in, like just decide to make them eligible. Who knows what kind of deals are going on backdoor right now, and that's also possible. So
true. Maybe somebody influenced French Guiana to play Maluda too. We never know. It's CONCACAF after all. But you know what? We have been cynical, and we kind of have to call it as it is. And it is a different era of CONCACAF. And maybe I'm being naive, but I'm giving the chance of a beginning, right? I'm giving the benefit of the doubt to CONCACAF that things have changed. Today, Duane, on the docket for the Gold Cup, second game in Group B, Panama, Nicaragua, 6:30 Eastern from Tampa at the Raymond James Stadium where the Buccaneers play, and the second game at 8:30 from the same stadium, U.S. Martinique. Oof, that field is going to look terrible at around 9:30 Eastern time.
Yeah, certainly. The U.S. is going to have, I think they're going to be motivated to go out and put a bit of a show on tonight. Martinique's no slouch, though. And going back just real quickly on the other thing, the true loser in this might be Guadeloupe, and Martinique, those consistent non-FIFA countries that have come in for years and years and years and have actually added something, a great deal to the Gold Cup. I have a feeling that what's going to come out of this is that at the end of it, CONCACAF's just going to wash their hands and go, you know what? No more territories in. You have to be a full FIFA member to be part of the Gold Cup. And that's really going to be unfortunate for those, like I said, for the Martiniques and the Guadeloupes out there. So I guess maybe it might inspire them to apply to be FIFA nations. I guess there's something about that. Let's go back to the U.S. A lot, I think, those players are going to be motivated to step up and prove that they weren't as sluggish as they were against Panama, although I think describing them as sluggish is doing a bit of a disservice to Panama, which is a good team. Also, they're going to need to score goals because right now it's coming down to goal differential. And could you imagine the perfect scenario in my mind, in many ways would be Canada actually does, go out and gets the job done, maybe beats Honduras by multiple goals, wins the group on its own accord without having to worry about anything else. And then somehow Panama nicks the U.S. So we have a 1-2 matchup where the U.S. is the 2. That'd be kind of fun. I mean, even if we went out in the quarterfinals, I really want to test this team against one of the 2 big teams.
But the game would still not be changed to Canada hosting the game, right? It'd be like, damn it. It would be fun if be like, yeah, come on, bring the game to Toronto or Vancouver or Montreal because we won. No. Anyways, it was fun a few years ago to have one Gold Cup game in Canada. We'll see if the experience. You know what? I would love to have different countries host a Gold Cup.
We've said this a million times before, but it's about money. I actually quickly on that. There's another conversation that happened last night at the pub. I'm reiterating all the pub conversations, but someone pointed out that if the Confederation Cup does go bye-bye. For 2026, there's still, I think, you need a tournament, particularly for Canada, to test its hosting capabilities. So why not host the 2025 Gold Cup in Canada as the tune-up tournament for the World Cup? Just a thought.
Makes sense.
We're thinking way ahead. Yeah.
Why not? Why not use a continental? Go broader than that. Use the same theory, but use it at a global scale. Why don't we make sure that we have the timing of continental cups to happen 1 year before the World Cup, and you held it in the same country that gets the World Cup, and that's their tuning tournament, that you get more attention because it's like kind of meaningful and you have more testing of actual hosting capabilities of hotels and infrastructures because it's like in more tournament with like 16 or whatever amount of teams. It's just an idea. Yeah, it would be tough to have the Euro a year before the World Cup in the same country. I understand that, but maybe outside of Europe, you can do that with the other confederations.
Yeah. The perfect answer is Tournament of the Americas, drop the Gold Cup altogether, or use the Gold Cup as the qualifier for the Tournament of the Americas. That's fine too.
Sure. But that would be like the Americas. Why not? Right? That's what we need. The Americas, a tournament, a beautiful trophy, not a rinky-dink thing. Like we need to make it a nice trophy. Like why can't we put our trophy silver? I think it looks nicer too. I understand the Gold Cup why it's gold, but the other ones.
Because otherwise it'd be the Silver Cup.
I know, that's why I understand that one, but like the other ones, I don't know. I just have the CCL trophy in mind, and I'm like, why?
CCL trophy is not that attractive. No, it's kind of a weird, chunky thing. Yeah,
like it's a trophy. It has an aura, but it's like, why is there black on that thing? Why is there plastic? Come on, it kind of ruins it.
It looks worse in person than it does on TV too.
It really does. It really does.
Alas. All right.
It's not like the MLS Cup, which like the MLS Cup last year, I was kind of in awe when I was next to it. I was like, yeah, that's a proper trophy right here.
Exactly. MLS Cup. Well, yeah, that's a nice trophy. They spent a lot of money on that trophy, so it should be nice. I still angry. We should have got that loony in the bottom of it, but maybe that would have made the difference for the penalty shootout.
Yeah, alas. Duane, but you would have been evicted from the CN Tower at that exact moment, so maybe that was not a good idea.
That probably would have been better off in the long run.
in hindsight, maybe, yes, but that's another story for another day.
All right. On that note, before I get myself in trouble, that's called it a day, Kevin. As always, wrap her up. We'll be back tomorrow with more Gold Cup coverage and maybe some resolution on French Guyana Gate.
Hopefully, we have more information on Malouda scandal with French Guyana. I'm Kevin Laramee. You can follow me on Twitter at Kev Laramee and follow Duane at 24th Minute. You can find the on-demand version of our shows on sportspodcastingnetwork.com and on Stitcher, Feedburner, Podbay Player, iTunes, Google Play Store, anywhere you get your podcasts. You can find the network. And as always, until tomorrow, have a great soccer. You were listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us sportspodcastingnetwork.com